Ceci n'est pas un pipe. Metal stared in horror as those words greeted him across the threshold. He saw them as soon as he had ripped the door from its hinges, because not only had Sonic slammed the door on him, his loathsome copy also had locked it. Sonic may have been furious, but Metal knew they couldn't split up. To split up would spell certain doom. So he had ripped the door away. Not that it had done him any good, because it wasn't Sonic he found on the other side. It was those words. Those awful, terrible words. And that painting. The one that was as simple as it was insulting. For all the canvas contained was an ordinary pipe, painted in broad strokes, with those words below. Ceci n'est pas un pipe. French, that was the language. And the translation, this is not a pipe. He took a single step backward, still enthralled by the deep pigment and awful words. This is not a pipe. It was a painting, not a pipe, because it was a copy. Metal's voice cracked as he turned away. He didn't have time for this. He needed to find Sonic. Even though Sonic had betrayed him, he couldn't escape without his help. He still needed Sonic. And Data. He needed Data. Metal shifted his attention to his surroundings. The new room lacked carpet, but in its place, red maple hardwood covered the floors. He tapped it with his foot, and the dull click echoed and faded into the dim corners of a museum. Countless paintings clung to the walls, and their images faded into the darkness like shadows. And that triangle. He had become careless and distracted, but even without Sonic, Metal knew that math would save him. That's why he needed the triangle. He turned to another canvas. Black and red paint smeared its surface and dripped into impossible and unreal shapes. He brushed the back of his hand against the canvas, and some of its ancient paint smeared on his fingers. The paint was oil, and oil never really dried. Globs of paint smothered his fingers as he scraped his hand into the image. Now that he had ink, Metal dragged his claws against the floor and smeared a perfectly straight line across the wood. He repeated the process, drawing 2 more lines, then took a step backwards and cleaned his hand on the carpet. Metal suspected he stood within non-Euclidean geometry, which meant the very fabric of space itself could twist up or cross into itself, and Sonic's sudden disappearance supported that hypothesis. The triangle would tell him for certain. If space was flat, then it was like drawing the shape on a sheet of paper. The interior angles would sum exactly to 180 degrees. But, if space was non-Euclidean, if it twisted up or through itself, then it was like drawing the triangle on a balloon. The medium of space would warp the triangle, and the sum of the angles would change. Kneeling by the corner of the triangle, Metal placed his fingers on each of its legs and measured the angles. His systems were optimized for such geometries, and soon he had found the sum. The sum was greater than 180 degrees. It was as he suspected, and he would need to be careful. He was an ant running inside a pipe, and he would have no guarantee that space would behave. With this in mind, he stood up and walked forward. He needed to be careful, but he also needed to find Sonic, and any delay would lower his probability of success. Creeping down the hallway, he turned to take one last look at that accursed painting. He shuddered and forced his head down, simply staring at the wood grain as he walked. Countless more paintings hung on the wall, and their depictions gradually grew more deformed and surreal the further he moved. Colors and shapes spun together like entropic whirlpools, descending order into chaos. It disturbed him. Why would anyone create such images? Reality was clean, perfect, and predictable, but these images destroyed that clarity. It was only a twisted mind who would want an image of anything less than a perfect reproduction. He stopped and stared into nothing. He looked down at his own hand, at his silver claws and yellow coating, and at the blue armor that covered his arms. These paintings were wrong, for their plain and simple shapes merely copied the most shallow surface of reality. He ran his fingers over the copper panel on his chest. It was smooth and bare, lacking any fur or skin. No, he shouldn't waste cycles processing this. Sonic. He needed Sonic. If he could only find Sonic. Static shattered the silence, and Nega's screeching voice poured through his audio sensors.
Oh ho ho! Admiring my collection of fine art, are we?
Metal clenched his fist and continued forward with his head down. This was a distraction, and he needed to focus on his mission, on his primary objective.
Tell me, my metal chum, I would like to know, what is your opinion on art?
Metal marched forward, knowing better than to respond, though the question stuck out, like the missing piece of a puzzle in his mind. Art. It was wrong. It copied reality into a falsehood, and it served no purpose. The hallway had ended, so Metal looked up. There were those words again. That painting. Ceci n'est pas un pipe. He was back where he started. His analysis of the geometry hadn't been enough, and he had gone in a circle. Metal jumped around, preparing to run back the way he came, but the hallway was gone. It had simply vanished into a dripping, whitewashed wall. That painting. He had to get away from that painting. There was a door next to it, and Metal took it, pressing forward with his head down. Just as before, paintings hung all around, and he had to force himself to look at them. He needed data, and he needed to know the geometry. This was the only way. He hated the paintings. They were disturbing, depicting real objects melting into puddles of color and chaos. One featured pocket watches, enlarged to the size of wall clocks, literally melting over objects in a desert. Why would anyone create such images? They were wrong, a mockery of reality, warped depictions of what they should be. They could serve no purpose.
Ah, I see. Art has no purpose, does it?
Nega's voice cracked all around him.
So then, tell me, my sentient stapler, just what is your purpose?
The hall ended, and there it was again. It had followed him. Ceci n'est pas un pipe. My purpose is obvious. I was built to neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog. He quickened his pace as he jogged down the one-way hall. His confusion had only grown. The paintings were different again. One featured numerous sets of monochrome stairs that twisted upwards and folded in on themselves, deforming into an impossible maze.
But my precious pencil sharpener, we both know the truth. We both know reality.
He gaped at the painting of the stairs. Stairs were meant to connect spaces, but these did not. They never could. And they would never serve their purpose, because their purpose was impossible.
Your mission, it's impossible, isn't it?
His mission. It was true. Success was a mathematical impossibility, but still, he had other orders. A brilliant flash illuminated the hallway, and Metal saw it. There, further ahead, stood the Chaos Emerald, and it cast a green kaleidoscope on the walls. The green emerald! It was the same one he had found in the forest. Metal ran toward it, and his steps echoed across the gallery. He needed the Chaos Emerald. No, he required the Chaos Emerald. He absolutely had to have the Chaos Emerald. It was an order, and he was programmed to follow orders. He ran, but the hallway stretched forward. The more he moved, the more space itself expanded, and it stretched the floor, walls, and painting like taffy. He kept running. He had to keep running, even if he was not moving, and even if the emerald only grew further with each step.
But why? Do you really need this emerald? What's the point? You remember what that old buffoon did to you? You can't follow his orders.
Metal slowed his pace. It was true. He couldn't follow Eggman's orders, because he wasn't following orders if he followed orders. Thus, he didn't really need the emerald. It was the only logically consistent solution. But if he didn't need the emerald...
So, you must tell me, my tepid trash can.
The emerald vanished, and space snapped backwards. Metal tumbled backwards, his armor scratching the seamless floor. He leaped up and ran. He needed to escape. He needed to get out of there. He needed Sonic. He needed to find Sonic. Digging his heels into the hardwood, Metal screeched to a halt before an enormous wall. There it was again. Those words. And that painting. Ceci n'est pas un pipe.
If you can't follow orders, and you don't need this emerald, and you can't kill Sonic the Hedgehog.
The room was different this time. In front of the painting it stood, placed inside a glass display. It was a genuine pipe, carved delicately from wood, and the painting was a perfect replica of it.
Then, what is your purpose? Why do you even exist? What is the point of you?
Those words haunted him. The painting of the pipe, the real pipe in front of it, the mathematical impossibility of his mission. And mathematics never lied. Ceci n'est pas un pipe. This is not a pipe. He couldn't look away. The painting was not a pipe. It was a picture of a pipe. The picture was not a pipe. It was a copy. A fake. Metal froze, and Sonic's words ran through his mind, like bits on the tape of an ancient mainframe.
How can you be superior to me? You lost every time we fought and every time we raced. You're nothing but a copy of me, Metal.
He clenched his fists. A picture of a pipe was not a pipe. A copy of something was not the original. He turned around, unable to look at the picture any longer. He had to get out of there. He had to find Sonic. He had to what? Escape? Find Sonic? Why? What was the point? Even if he could escape, he could never kill Sonic, and he could never do the only thing he existed to do. His head jerked up. The hall was gone, and in its stead, a large mirror spread across the wall. It reflected the whole room, the walls, the floor, and the real pipe. But in the center, where he should have seen his own reflection, there was nothing. He was missing.
Tell me, my perennial paperweight pal, what do you see in that mirror?
Frantically, he cycled through his database and models. There was a solution. There was an explanation. There always was.
Photons strike the material behind the mirror and reflect.
Not how it works, you silly doorstop. No one cares about that. What do you see in the mirror, What does it mean?
Metals stared at the mirror, where his reflection should be. There was no explanation. Nega clicked his teeth over the radio.
Oh my, you certainly are a dense one, aren't you? What is a reflection of a reflection? A picture of a picture.
The reflection of a reflection.
Metal's voice broke into unintelligible static. He couldn't tear his optics away from the gap in the mirror.
The copy of a copy.
Oh, now we're making progress. What worth is a copy?
Metal said nothing. He could say nothing.
Let me ask again. What is reflected in that mirror?
A mirror is a reflection of reality,
Metal said, taking a single step backwards.
And this shows...
He turned back to see the painting behind him. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. Then he noticed it. That accursed picture was also missing from the mirror. The reflection of a copy.
Very astute, my precious mechanical pencil. Very astute indeed.
Metal stood upright and clenched his fists.
No, you're wrong. If I kill Sonic, if he's gone, I won't be a copy. A reflection without its source is the original. It's only a copy by comparison. If there's nothing to compare to, it's no longer a copy.
The sound of tinny laughter spilled across the gallery. Metal faced the mirror. He couldn't stand the sight of the empty room, so he turned back to the painting. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. It was too much. He turned again, and there it was, the real pipe. The high-pitched, sharp laughter continued.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop!
Metal's voice broke into static. The pipe and the painting, only one was allowed to exist. He heaved onto the podium, and the glass casing shattered into countless shards as it hit the floor. The pipe tumbled out. It skidded across the floor until it tapped his feet. This is not a pipe. Metal's voice broke into a flat tone. He smashed the pipe beneath his heel and twisted his foot, crushing it to dust. If there was no pipe and no comparison, the painting would be real.
You're wrong! Wrong! I'm not a copy!
He kicked the base of the pedestal, then dropped to his knees and tore away chunks with his fist.
I am the real Sonic!
He leaped up and lifted his hand to strike. Then he saw the painting. The pile of dust that was the former pipe stood in front of him. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. The painting, it still wasn't real. The pipe was gone, but the painting... He fell to his knees, and the crushed pipe laid in splinters before him. It couldn't be real. It would never be real. He could destroy the pipe, but he could never make the painting real. He picked up the splinters and opened his palms, watching as the sawdust trickled from his hands. He couldn't argue with the math. He couldn't argue with reality.
I'll never be... I'll always be...
Nega's hollow laughter cut out, and silence engulfed the room. He buried his face in his hands.
I'm nothing more than a copy.